Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled, What If Trevor Lawrence Chose UNC Instead of Clemson? Clemson didn't lose a game, they didn't lose a coach. They lost out due to one recruiting decision, and it erased a dynasty. Because in this timeline, Trevor Lawrence never steps foot on Clemson's campus. He goes somewhere else. Not to Alabama, not to Georgia. He goes to North Carolina, and in one move, the ACC flips, the playoff breaks, and Clemson goes from inevitable to just another really good team. But first, let's set up a little bit. In real life, Trevor Lawrence wasn't just a five-star, he was the five-star. The kind of quarterback that doesn't just elevate a program, he defines an era. And when he committed to Clemson, it felt like the next step in something that was already building. They had Dabo Swinney. They had a rising powerhouse. They had momentum. So let me ask you something. What if that momentum never got its final piece? What if Lawrence looked at Clemson and said no? Now let's set the table to the decision. Now you may be thinking to yourself, why would he ever choose UNC over Clemson? That's the entirety of this alternate universe, and it comes down to three things. One, immediate control. At Clemson, there's a system. In this alternate universe at North Carolina, there's an offer. This is your offense. Day one starter. No bridge year. No waiting behind a veteran. Number two, quarterback development. North Carolina doesn't sell tradition. They sold customization. An offense built to showcase him, not plug him in. And for a generational quarterback, that matters more than people think. Third factor, Clemson's hidden friction. Here's the part nobody talks about. Clemson already had a guy in Kelly Bryant, a proven winner, a locker room leader. And whether people admit it or not, that complicates things. Because now you're not just joining a program, you're walking into a situation. And sometimes the difference between a dynasty and a what if is whether a quarterback wants to wait. And that sets the table to the flip. Trevor Lawrence commits to UNC, and at first, it doesn't feel real. It feels like one of those recruiting wins that gets hyped in February and disappears by October. But this one doesn't disappear, because the second he steps on the field, everything changes. And that sets the table to North Carolina's rise in 2018. Week 1, you see flashes. Week 3, you start hearing it. Week 5, wait, is North Carolina actually good? The offense isn't just functional, it's exciting. Lawrence isn't just talented, he's in control. North Carolina goes from irrelevant to must watch. At the mid-season stretch, they have a top 15 matchup, national spotlight, and this is where most what-if teams fall apart. They blink, they regress, and they remind you who they are. But North Carolina doesn't do any of that. Lawrence goes into a hostile environment and wins. He doesn't survive, he wins. By November, North Carolina's made it to the top 10. They're in the ACC race, and suddenly they're in the playoff conversation. Now let's set the table to the Clemson side. Clemson is still good, really good in fact, but something's off. Kelly Bryant is still QB1, but the offense isn't as exciting, the ceiling feels lower, and there's tension about what the offense should be. And then a small injury early in the season. Not catastrophic, but just enough that it turns 45-14 wins into 28-24 wins. Enough to turn dominance into vulnerability. The difference is Clemson doesn't collapse. They just aren't inevitable. And in college football, that's everything. And that sets the table for the collision course. And this is where we get to the game, the one that defines this alternate universe. ACC championship game, North Carolina Clemson. On one side, you have the program that built the machine. On the other, the quarterback that chose not to join it. And this is where you may be thinking, okay, but Clemson probably still wins the game. And that's fair. They're more established. They're more proven. But they don't have Trevor Lawrence. The game's back and forth. And late in the fourth quarter, Trevor Lawrence has the ball. Drive after drive after drive. He doesn't force it, he controls it. Final possession, North Carolina takes the lead. Clemson gets one last chance and falls short. North Carolina wins the ACC. And now everything breaks because Clemson isn't there. The playoff field changes, as do the matchups and the narratives. Instead of Clemson continuing a dynasty, we get chaos, we get questions, and we get a completely different version of college football. And North Carolina, they're not supposed to be here, but they are because one decision put them there. So now you have to ask, was Clemson inevitable? Or did they just have the right quarterback at the right time? Because in this alternate timeline, they didn't lose a season, they didn't lose a program, they lost a moment. And that moment changed everything. And if you want more universes where one decision rewrites college football history, hit subscribe because the next one might be even more chaotic. And I'll see you in the next timeline.